Hi friends, I hope you have seen my first video. This video is more crucial than last video. First video was very easy. That we just enumerated various clinical patterns and we emphasized the cell basis and pathogenesis is important for individualized care and improving outcomes. We are right now not aware about exactly what cells are involved, in which organ and why. So this particular video is going to clarify most of the doubts. As far as any pathogenesis theory is there is no excuse for exception. All the questions, all the clinical and demographic questions must be answered by pathogenesis, not few. So this cellular basis means what? Now we know that this COVID virus can't enter the cell unless until cell is expressing ACE2 receptor. Now this ACE2 receptor is present widely all over the body. Why lung only is affected? If at all this virus is spreading all over the body, why babies are spared? In pregnant lady, we are getting hundreds and thousands of cases of COVID positive mother. Why there is no vertical transmission? Why young are spared? Why old are affected? Including malignancy, solid tumors affected more, leukemias relatively spared. So these are the pertinent questions, and one pathogenesis which will answer all the questions is need of the hour. Now today we'll explain what is P and what is C. What is P type and what is C type COVID. To generate this hypothesis or pathogenesis, we should take help of two modalities. Most important part is facts, and second, complementary is logic. Facts are objective, logic is subjective. When you put facts and logic together, there is a danger of self-fulfilling prophecy. We try to find out selectively those facts which support the hypothesis. We won't fall into that trap. We will consider opposite also, and we'll try to find out whether by one pathogenesis we can answer all the questions, all the dilemmas, all the confusions about this COVID. So as far as cellular basis is concerned, let us start with facts. What we saw in last presentation. What is the fact? This is the fact. That affection is lung, affection is peripheral. It is seen better in CT chest, not seen in X-ray. It is peripheral, well delineated, radial spread and ground glass appearance. Now this picture of CT, is it new for us? Is uncommon, but certainly not new. So as far as this is concerned, this CT picture is concerned, have you seen this similar CT picture in past? Yes. Other pneumonias, malignancies do create this picture. Out of all the pneumonias and malignancies, what is the disease which creates exactly similar picture? Because malignancy and pneumonia both can present, they can be actually differentiated by CT, by well delineation. And this typical peripheral, well delineated radial spread and ground glass appearance, it is seen in one malignancy, which is bronchiolo-alveolar carcinoma. Bronchiolo-alveolar carcinoma. The carcinoma which takes both parts, bronchiolo, that is terminal conducting airways, and alveolar part, which is gas exchanging unit. So carcinoma which affects bronchiolo and alveolar compartment of lung, that is junction between these two important compartments. So this bronchiolo-alveolar carcinoma, when we went to the origin of that, origin is very clear. That is one cell called as Klotz cell or is called as Clara cell. This is nothing but our C type. C stands for Clara. C also stands for Klotz cells, because nowadays we are using Klotz cell more than terminology called Clara cell. So this particular evidence appears to be very conjunctural. and leap of faith. The same Clara cell causing bronchial carcinoma and same Clara cell causing COVID. So we should not get into that trap of justifying this. We have to go to look into the location of it. Where is the Clara cell? Now, as we know, lungs, they contain tracheobronchial tree. One airway divides dichotomously into 23 generations. 2 become 4, 4 become 8, 8 become 16, like this. It keeps on expanding. And 23 times it divides. So this 23 number is important. In mouse model, lower lobes contain more generation. Upper lobe contain less generation. But in humans, it is same in upper lobe and lower lobe. The trachea generates into bronchi. Bronchi keep on dividing themselves up to 10 generations. Now, after 10 generations, these bronchi lead to bronchioles. Now, these bronchioles are the location for what we call as bronchiolitis in RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, where it leads to obstruction of bronchioles. Once we came to know location, then we were able to manage that. Where is location of COVID? Because CT picture clearly says it is peripheral. Peripheral means peripheral 1/3 of the slice. It must be peripheral. Now, alveoli are not present only peripherally in lungs. Alveoli are present at 2 stages. From 16 generation to 20 generation, alveoli are present. And this particular part is taking part in gas exchange. This is called as respiratory bronchiole. Now, this respiratory bronchiole later on leads to alveolar duct. This alveolar duct is surrounded all over from alveoli. And at the end, it ends into alveolus. Now we can see alveoli are present at this stage, and this stage. What is this peculiar this location? This is nothing but BAD, bronchiolo-alveolar duct junction, BADJ. And this junction is very crucial because it signifies the change in function. That rather than conducting, now the tissue is serving as a gas exchange. Now, whenever we get this sudden change in function, all over the tissues, we get progenitor cells sitting on that crucial, strategically important junction. So this is the site where Clara cells reside. Now, these Clara cells reside at that junction where respiratory bronchiole is getting converted into alveolar duct. This Clara cell is a progenitor, which can give rise to conducting compartment as well as this particular gas exchanging compartment. So we'll go in detail about that. Now, we know that it is peripheral. We know that it is similar to bronchiolo-alveolar carcinoma. We know that both are related with Clara cell affection. Now, what is the evidence that this particular Clara cell is responsible for COVID? So this Clara cell is an interesting history that, but we can say tragic history, because Max Clara, on whose name this Clara cell is named, was actually a Nazi German scientist. He discovered this Clara cell by dissecting unfortunate victims of Holocaust. So there was a widespread outrage, and he decided not to name as a Clara cell and to name as a club cell. They are progenitor cells. They are present at bronchiolo-alveolar duct junction. Now, once you identify that, we should give objective factual evidence that whether this Clara cell is the location where COVID happens or starts. Where a Clara cell centrality, is there any evidence? Evidence came. Evidence came in the form of cytological studies. Now, this evidence is actually very important because this evidence tells us clearly that this particular Clara cell is affected in COVID. Before that, we'll try to go into what is the function of progenitor cells. Now, these progenitor cells are nothing but those cells which can replicate into themselves. They can give rise to differentiated cells, or they can actually repair the injured part of epithelium. Now, you can see clearly here, this is the tube which is forming. Now, tube is dividing into two. Now, on advancing phase or advancing area of that particular bud is sitting this mother cell. This is called progenitor cell. This mother cell gives rise to daughter cells. Daughters are left behind, mother keeps on advancing. Daughters are left behind, mother keeps advancing. Again, it will give rise to further branches. So this particular situation ultimately leads to a situation where peripherally there are progenitor cells. What is the most important periphery of this particular whole tracheobronchial tract is this. These are the peripheries. So in this periphery we get affection. Not in central. Central alveoli are there, but they are usually spared and it affects predominantly periphery. So this hypothesis tells clearly about the location, its correlation with the imaging picture also. Now we have to understand what is this progenitor cells. Stem cells, everybody knows, they are pluripotent. They can give rise to any type of tissue. After that, after stem cells, they come progenitor cells. Now these progenitor cells give rise to differentiated cells. So the potential is less than stem cells, but more than differentiated cells. Now what is the important thing to understand here is a typical phenomenon. These progenitor cells to form behave differently in different situations. Now, when there is stress involved, there is a pressure, environment is not conducive, then this progenitor cell will give rise to one more progenitor cell. When conditions are good, it will go for differentiation path. So, two options, either form your clone or give rise to daughter cells, which will do the function correctly. So, in difficult situation like infection, inflammation, toxic injury, these progenitor cells produce one more progenitor cell. This ability of producing one more progenitor cell reduces with time. They are very abundant in children, they can replicate better, but this number as well as ability to replicate comes down with time. And as far as lung is concerned, it comes down drastically after 20 to 25 years. Before 20 to 25 years, Clara cell can give rise to one more Clara cell. But after 25 years, this ability comes down. Now, this ability is not limited to only Clara to Clara. It is actually further important to know that this concept called as transdifferentiation. There is one more progenitor cells in lung, that is pneumocyte type 2. All the pediatricians and neonatologists, they like this cell very much because this is the cell which produces surfactant. This cell is present throughout the age, throughout life it is present. Because the Clara cell can give rise to ciliated epithelium. And Clara cell can convert into Clara cell. But Clara cell can give rise to pneumocyte 2 also. So Clara cell can give rise to differentiated cells of airway. Clara cell can give rise to another Clara cell with challenge. Clara cell can transdifferentiate into pneumocyte 2, which can give rise to pneumocyte 1. What is this pneumocyte 2 and pneumocyte 1? Pneumocyte 2 gives rise to surfactant. Pneumocyte 1 actually takes part in gas exchange. So the centrality of Clara cell is self-evident from this discussion, but it is not sufficient. We must have cytological evidence. And cytological evidence came from Germany, Berlin Institute of Health. These scientists, cellular biologists, when COVID started, they studied thousands of cells which are present in the lab. The cells were taken from normal individuals, they were taken from cancerous individuals, they were taken from cancer tissues and surrounding normal tissues, variety of cells, cartilage, glands, epithelial cells, gas exchanging cells, muscles, everything they studied. And they were in search of those cells which contain genes which will lead to proteins which are essential for COVID entry. So they found very few cells are having the characteristics of ACE2 receptor and cofactor. What are the two cells? They zoom down to only two types of cells, that is Clara cell and pneumocyte 2. And that solved the problem actually. This COVID lung is nothing but Clara cell affection and or pneumocyte 2 affection. That's why topic of this discussion is C type and P type. Now, clinical parts we'll discuss in next presentation. Here we'll stretch that particular cellular basis further. That this C type and P type COVID based on Clara cell and pneumocyte 2 is affecting only lung? No, it's affecting other organs also. Can we have this hypothesis in other organs also? So next study came. In this next study, they studied a number of cells, thousands of cells of liver, hepatocytes, cholangiocytes, stromal cells, immunological cells, and they found out there is only one type of cell which can express the affinity for COVID, and that was TROP2 plus cells. TROP2 plus cells, which are progenitors. Now, how to identify progenitor in liver? It is nothing but by identifying a specific protein or specific gene coding for that protein, which is called as EPCAM. We won't go in details about that, but we know that liver contains progenitor cells. Progenitor cells expressing TROP2, that is trophoblast surface antigen, they only can express this ACE2 receptor and TMPRSS2 cofactor. Now it is becoming slightly complicated. It's quite easy, not complicated. So this TMPRSS2 will not discuss. We'll call this only cofactor. So we need ACE2, we need cofactor. These two are there, then only virus can enter the cell. Virus can't enter any other cells of liver. It enters only specific progenitor cells in liver expressing TROP2+. Are they present only in lung and liver? No. These progenitor cells are present in many organs. They are present in endothelium. They are called as epithelial progenitor cells or epithelial colony forming cells. They are present in kidney. So they are present everywhere. So these progenitor cells in various tissues are the target. Not all progenitor cells. Only those progenitor cells which can express ACE2, those progenitor cells which can express cofactor. And proliferating ability, which is dictated by TROP2+, is essential. Now, we'll go to next part. Can it answer our questions? That these progenitor cells are abundant in children and reduce with time. That can explain why COVID is mild in young and severe in old. In young, they do get infected, but the severity of illness is less because even if one progenitor cell is gone, other progenitor cells can replace it. They can form a similar copy, similar clone of it. But in older individuals, where they are in few in number, we are unable to replicate. Then few progenitor cells are gone, then function is paralyzed. Second thing is progenitor cells can replicate better in younger and older individual. Alone can't explain why it sometimes happens in young. Yes, we have got evidence that sometimes it happens in young in a very serious matter. That particular answer will give in next presentation. But before that, now these progenitor cells are clear that they are actually entry point of COVID. In lung, it is C and P, that is Clara cell and pneumocyte. Now, how to identify another anomaly in demographics? Smokers and asthmatics were found to have less incidence of COVID. But when it happens, it was very, very severe. So can we explain it on this hypothesis? Yes, because Clara cells number are less in smokers. Smoke, it was they tried for nicotine also patches in some countries, saying that why it is smokers are spared. No, smokers are not spared. Smokers have got less Clara cell, less targets maybe for COVID. But once they get infected, the disease is more severe. So it is not nicotine, it is naphthalene. Naphthalene in smoke, when it goes into airways, Clara cells try to detoxify that. In that situation, Clara cells suffer. So Clara cell number is less in smokers. Clara cell number is less in asthmatics. So once they get COVID, there is no very little amount of Clara cell available to replicate it. So COVID is more severe in smokers and asthmatics. Now, age and sex pattern. ACE2 receptor density is known to increase with age. Now we are differentiating between progenitor cell number and ACE2 receptor density. Progenitor cells are more in children. They reduce with time. Ability of progenitor cell to replicate more in children reduces with time. But on the progenitor cells, ACE2 receptor density increases with age. So an old individual is having less number of progenitor cells, unable to replicate, but they are having lot of ACE2 receptors. So they can get infected, but they can't replenish the progenitor cells. That explains why it is more in older, why it is less in younger. Even gender differences. So it has been observed that ACE2 receptor density is more in men than women. It's common observation that all majority of COVID mortalities are in men than women. The gender difference is maybe less in some countries, more in some countries, but always more men have died with COVID than women. So now we come to one almost end of this topic, that is cellular basis and pathogenesis. Cellular basis clearly says that progenitor cells, who are progenitor cells? Versatile cells, those who can regenerate, those who can differentiate, those who can replicate. Not all. Those with ACE2 receptor and cofactor. Both are the target of COVID. What are the examples? Clara cell, pneumocyte 2, affection of lung. TROP2 plus cell, affection of liver. Endothelial progenitor cells, affection of endothelia. It looks settled. No. This particular thing will be a shortcut. It may be a self-fulfilling prophecy that we think about some cell, label it, and declare that this cell is causing disease. We should be able to answer difficult questions. Then only we can accept it rather than accepting at face value. So what are the difficult questions we should ask? Whether these difficult questions are explained by this hypothesis, then only we should accept. Otherwise, don't accept. What are the difficult questions? Basic question. Why less in GIT? Now, when the virus comes to our nose and mouth, it can go to lung, it can be swallowed, it can go to intestine. It's a well-known fact that intestine is containing lot of progenitor cells. They're replicating. The intestinal lumen is being replaced every 4 to 5 days. So when so many progenitor cells are present in GIT, why not GIT as a primary target? Why lung as a primary target? It has got a lot of implications for epidemiology also. Second is, why less in newborns? Newborns are full of progenitor cells. Newborns, their cells are replicating like anything. Embryo is converted to fetus, fetus is converted to baby. A lot of progenitor cells are there. Then why babies are spared? There is nothing like congenital corona. Hundreds and thousands of COVID positive mothers are there in every city of the world. They are delivering babies, and there is nobody has conclusively described congenital corona. Absence of congenital corona and relatively less GI symptoms are quite puzzling. And third important thing is, why not disease always? Large number of asymptomatic individuals. Even if on postmortem you see number of organs affected, some organs are silent. So how to explain absence of disease? How to explain paucity of gastrointestinal symptoms? And how to explain absence of congenital corona? If these three important questions are answered, then only we should go ahead. So let us go by one. Why less in GIT? This particular question was very important for developing countries like India. This is the picture of biggest slum in Asia called Dharavi. Dharavi is a slum where very small area and lakhs people are living together. So this particular thing was not academic question here. It was a life and death question for Dharavi. If this particular virus is going to spread by intestine. Intestines are getting affected in a place where, according to one study, 1,000 people sharing some one toilet. Even if you accept this exaggeration, 100 people sharing one toilet. Even if people are wearing masks, they are hand washing, still, if GIT is the reservoir, if GIT is causing spread, then you can imagine what might have happened. But actually, the ultimate outcome was better than what we feared. Dharavi successfully came out of that. So, GIT can transmit, but doesn't transmit as much as respiratory. GIT can suffer, doesn't suffer as much as lungs. Why? Because progenitor cells are more in GIT than lungs. Lung cells are not renewing so fast. GIT is renewing every day. So that particular question we are able to answer. It is quite important from epidemiological point of view also. How to answer that question? Let us see. This is a very old study actually, 1990s, specifically about coronaviruses. What they did, they studied coronavirus in different temperature and different pH. At pH of 8, that is alkaline pH, at 37 degrees Celsius, that is body temperature. Virus aggregation happened. Means two viruses, they joined together. They form clumps. Once they form clumps, they're unable to actually be active, and inactivation happened. Their half-life was hardly 30 minutes. Means within half an hour, actually half of them actually were non-viable. Within half an hour, virus actually viability came down by half. This happens in alkalinity. Means virus doesn't like alkaline environment. Opposite to it is acidity. pH of 6. In this pH of 6, virus was very stable. Half-life was 24 hours. 1 day. 1 day is a very long time in virus life. So at acidity, virus was surviving for a long time. Alkalinity, virus was actually getting destroyed fast. Destroyed in the sense, genome will be there. This RT-PCR will be positive, but they were not viable virus. So what is the implication for GIT? Let us see the GIT one by one. Now this particular table contains pH, site in intestine, and progenitor cell marker. In previous slide we saw how to identify progenitor. The cell biologists, how they identify the progenitor cell. They identify using a marker called as EPCAM. What is epithelial cell adhesion molecule? When that molecule is present, that means progenitor is present. Now this molecule will tell whether progenitor cell is present in that organ or not. Now let us come to esophagus. Because esophagus is very important, because symptomatology wise, majority of COVID patients, they complain severe burning throat. Sometimes they present severe chest compression. Supposedly, it can happen in upper esophageal environment. Now this esophagus, pH is described as, of course, it keeps on changing, 7. And esophagus also has got progenitor cells. So esophageal affection possible? Yes, possible. We are seeing that clinically. Second one is important, that is stomach. Now once you go to stomach, it is giving a very favorable environment for virus actually. Very favorable environment. This is 1.5 to 3.5 acidity. But this particular thing is devoid of progenitor cells. So these progenitor cells are less in stomach. Why? This is very, very important defense mechanism of body against COVID. Because esophagus can be affected, stomach can be affected, virus is teeming here, but progenitor cells are less. Now we remember that progenitor cells, they are actually the target of this particular virus. Now this particular, after stomach comes jejunum. Now in jejunum, progenitor cells are present, but alkalinity is there. So here, as the virus enters jejunum, it may be inactivated within few minutes. The same thing applies for them. So where acidity is there, progenitor cells are not there. Where progenitor cells are there, acidity is not there. So thank God that this particular virus cannot have both. That is acidity as well as progenitor cells in intestine. But that doesn't mean that intestinal symptoms are absent. They are present. Many patients have described diarrhea, but nobody has died with diarrhea. So compared to lung and GIT, lung continues to be the main organ, not GIT. It is very important for epidemiological point of view also. Now this inactivated virus, when it is excreted, it gives you an indication of how much is the community spread in that particular locality. So in the sewage or drainage, if you do RT-PCR, if you try to find out the antigen, viral antigen, genome, you are going to find it. And in fact, that particular genome will give us approximately how the community transmission is increasing or decreasing. This is called as water-based epidemiology. So water-based epidemiology is important for community level, but at individual level, this particular fecal-oral spread, fortunately, is unlikely, which is actually seen in practical experience also. Next thing is why it is more in respiratory then. Respiratory tract is a very peculiar tract. We saw in GIT, pH keeps on changing from top to bottom. It doesn't happen in respiratory. Right from nose up to the bronchioles, pH is uniform, that is 6.6. Of course, some variations happened, but in general, all these variations are around 6.6. So this respiratory pH is very, very conducive for viral stability. It's acidic slightly. So this respiratory tract secretion pH is conducive. Plus, in periphery, two cells are available, Clara cells, pneumocyte 2. So these particular location as well as pH makes lungs susceptible for this virus. So virus is not planning to attack your lungs. Virus is deaf, blind and mute. It just gets inside. And wherever acidity is there, wherever progenitor cells are there, they go inside. That's all. Lung happen to be there. So respiratory tract affected more, GIT is usually spared. Now let us go for famotidine. Famotidine generated a lot of interest. That famotidine reduces symptoms. So famotidine was tried and actually it reduces symptoms. It improves upper GI symptoms, but no improvement in endpoint outcome. What is endpoint outcome? Need for intubation and death. Famotidine did not affect, but it did reduce upper GI symptoms. So why it did that? Already we know that acidity is something which this virus likes. If you reduce that, even esophageal symptoms because of reflux and acidity and progenitor cells can be reduced. So burning throat pain, chest pain, compression in chest, tightening of chest, discomfort. Many people reported in various countries that after taking famotidine, I felt better. It's just true. It was explainable by this hypothesis, but it won't prevent your entry of virus into lung cells or pathogenesis or pathology. So famotidine is okay for symptomatic management pertaining to only upper GI, but it is not going to make any change for morbidity and mortality in long term. Now, second question, why less in newborns? All our metro cities are having hundreds and thousands of COVID positive mothers. In government hospitals, private hospitals, they are there. Majority are asymptomatic. But though they are asymptomatic, we know that there must be some period of viremia. And during that viremia, this particular virus has got potential to cross placenta and go to the fetus. Even if you take, so 1% and 5% of transmission, still we should get loads and loads of congenital corona. But no, there is no congenital corona, which is quite surprising in the beginning. Why it spares the newborn? Is there any cellular basis based on this hypothesis or not? We'll see. Embryo ultimately develops into fetus. Now, mother and baby, there is organ in between. There is organ called placenta. So, mother supplies placenta. Placenta leads to umbilical cord. Now, this umbilical cord contains umbilical vein. Now, this umbilical vein ultimately leads to fetal liver. And in fetal liver is the main gating organ for fetus, not lung. In adult, lung is entry point, and majority of viral infections, fetal liver is the entry point. Now, let us see what happens to fetal liver as far as cellular basis is concerned. Now, there was a study in Mumbai, ICMR Institute of Reproductive Health. What they did is they examined a lot of embryos. And in embryos, they tried to find out, are we getting any cells which are susceptible for corona. What they studied, not only receptors, ACE2 and cofactor, but they also studied those enzymes which are needed for endocytosis. Those enzymes needed for taking the virus inside, modifying it, processing it. Are they present or not? And they found, yes, they are there. They are there in embryo, in developing embryo. This particular foundation for entry and processing of corona is present. So it was very scary. So they in fact avoided going for IVF during COVID time. So when receptors are present, but we are not getting congenital corona. Why? So one more study came that told convincingly that fetal liver does not have ACE2 and cofactor. But fetal liver is having lot of progenitor cells. So this clarifies that only ACE2 not sufficient, only cofactor not sufficient, only progenitor cell not sufficient, progenitor plus ACE2 plus cofactor is very, very highly selective. The virus is very choosy. Virus likes to go into cell only those who are having all three criteria. Then only virus will go into the cell. So now this we can complete the loop. COVID positive mother. Fetal liver can't get infected. That's why newborn is safe. Now this fetal liver we saw, fetal liver, but we didn't think about blood supply. Now we have to understand that these progenitor cells are always located at crucial strategic juncture, just like adipose tissue. If you go for adipose progenitor cells, these adipose progenitor cells are sitting when the tissue changes, that is vessel to fat, they are sitting there. In fetal liver, these progenitor cells are sitting at juncture, that is when is blood and hepatocytes and cholangiocytes, that strategically located progenitor cells, and they are spared. So this particular virus can't infect fetal liver. So that can explain why newborns fortunately are safe. Now we'll go to next part. Why not disease always? Now we get contradictory theories. One theory says that it is endotheliitis, means all over the body there is a virus spreading here and there. At the same time, a lot of thromboembolism can happen. But very few people get thromboembolism. When they get, the mortality is more. Majority of people are asymptomatic. How to explain this? Is it in cellular basis or in autopsy basis for this? So we know coronavirus affects progenitor cells with ACE2, with cofactor, with TROP2. Majority are not having clinical features, some are having clinical features. That is individual level. At organ level, even if the organ is affected, the organ may not have clinical features. What is the evidence for that? Evidence for that again came from Germany, Hamburg. It was a very nice study where they did serially autopsy of 12 patients. Majority of them were above 70 years of age. Majority of them were males as usual. 9 were males, 3 were females. When they did, they came across a lot of thromboembolic phenomena, vascular thrombosis. They highlighted a lot about pulmonary thrombosis. Pulmonary vessels thrombosis was there in 3. More than that, 4 individuals were having lower limb thrombosis, which is quite possible because they are old patients. They are prone for less activity, ICU admission, and procoagulant situation, and lower limb thrombosis was more. What was surprising here was prostatic thrombosis. Why prostate? Prostate was affected in 6 individuals out of 9 men. Out of 9, 6 prostatic, very large amount of prostatic thrombosis was observed. Why prostate is involved more than lungs and lower limbs as far as thrombosis is concerned? It was quite surprising. So how to explain it on cellular basis, we'll see. Average age was 70 years. Definitely they will have, a lot of patients will have prostatic hyperplasia. And it is already peculiarity of prostate is those cells which are in contact with vessel to prostate, that interface, basal cells. They are expressing these 3 musketeers, that is TROP2 plus, ACE2 plus, and cofactor. So these prostatic cells, they abundantly express this TROP2 plus, ACE2 plus, and cofactor. That's why they are affected. So, in other words, now we can actually complete this presentation by positively arguing, negatively arguing. That is, when a virus enters the cell, it is deaf, mute, and blind. It does not want to cause disease. It is not wanting to go to some organ or tissue or something. Virus likes only one part, that is pH. If pH is acidic, they're happy. They're alkaline, they become inactive. Now they go in both. There is GIT as well as RS. Once they go to GIT, the acidity is there, but progenitor is not there, and afterwards alkalinity is there. So they can't progress much. Once they go to RS, they can't find any progenitor cells. In trachea, then bronchi. Ultimately, they find progenitor cells at BAD junction, that is bronchiolo-alveolar duct junction, in the form of Clara cell and nearby pneumocyte. And they see whether this cell is having ACE2 and cofactor. Now, once they find any cell with ACE2 and cofactor, they attach. So, this is the cellular basis of COVID. Now, it looks like research oriented or in academic discussion. No. Each and every healthcare worker should understand the cellular basis so that we can go for the biggest test of this hypothesis. What's biggest test? This hypothesis will remain only on paper if we are not able to explain the clinical picture and clinical syndromes based on this hypothesis. That is our next challenge. That next challenge is explaining pathogenesis based on this cellular basis. So this next part will cover into next video. Thank you very much for sharing this one. So I hope you are clear about first part. First part is importance of pathogenesis cellular basis. Second part, we came across what is exact cellular basis of COVID. Next is most interesting. That is pathogenesis, how this cellular basis explains pathogenesis. So thanks a lot for your listening. Thank you.